Hey guys, what's going on? So recently the PvP system came out with World PvP. So a lot of my videos have been covering PvP ranking and all that sort of stuff. However, one thing that we didn't talk about was the world bosses that were added. Now, not only are world bosses a way for guilds on servers to kind of show dominance, but there's also some pretty unique items. I wanted to discuss the Spirit of Eskhander, which is an item set, and I wanted to discuss this item set for a while, but I wanted to wait till world bosses were out and you could actually collect all of these pieces of gear. So yeah, let's get right into it. So in World of Warcraft, especially in Classic, there's a lot of items that are pretty unique. So they might have a really unique chance on hit, there might be a unique buff for them, and some items just have some weird stats in general. Classic WoW was very fresh in terms of scaling and items and all that sort of stuff. So we all know that there's some items in dungeons that stay relevant all the way, into later phases such as AQ and Naxxramas, and then there's also some pieces of gear that are dropped in the raids that really aren't that good at all. And so we're going to talk about the Eskhander set today, and the Eskhander set is in that weird spot where it's very rare and unique, and I doubt anyone has seen this proc in game ever. I personally never had. However, there's reasons behind that, and we're going to talk about that in today's video. So let's just get started with the set. So there's 4 items to this set. There's a right-handed claw, so a main hand weapon. There's a left-handed claw, so offhand weapon, and then there is a cloak and a necklace. So it's already somewhat unique there, as most of the time when we see item sets, it's full gear, such as like the tier sets. So that alone makes this set kind of unique. However, the 4-piece bonus is what is really unique about this set and is something we'll talk about later in the video. So the first thing is some of these pieces are easier to get than others, and all of these pieces drop from different bosses in different locations. So that's what makes this set kind of hard to piece together. The first piece is the right hand claw. So this is your main hand weapon, and this actually drops off Magmadar, and it's a 20% drop rate, and this is the most common item you will see. This item isn't very good. However, it's pretty decent for tanks, and you'll see a lot of warrior tanks that have this equipped. It has a nice chance on hit, which is that it increases your attack speed by 30% for 5 seconds, and it's already a 1.5 speed weapon, so it's already rather quick. So it's nice for threat generation and for your warrior tanks out there. You might see this weapon on a rogue, but there are definitely some better options out there for rogues. That leads us into the necklace. So Eskander's collar is probably the second most notable item within this item set. A lot of you have seen this drop within Onyxia's lair, and it's dropped from Onyxia, and it has around a 20% drop rate as well. The unique thing about this necklace is that it has a lot of stamina and some good stats for PvP. So a lot of times guilds will either give this to people that haven't received loot in a while, or it will be a PvP role. So you might see this if you are a feral druid, or if you're an enhancement shaman. This might be kind of one of your upgrades that your guild finally gives you, because most of the other gear is obviously going to your rogues and warriors. Or your guild might decide to do a role for PvP, because it does have high stamina. It is a good neck to be wearing if you are a warrior and you're doing PvP. It's nice for that. It also has a chance for a dodge, 1% chance for a dodge, and then it also has a 1% crit chance on it as well. So decent stats, but nothing to write home about. However, since most guilds are doing Oni every week, it's one of those pieces that most guilds will see fairly quickly. So having 2 of those pieces isn't really a big deal. Like I said, the right-handed claw, that drops quite a bit, and then we always see Eskander's collar, and it eventually will probably be one of those items that you see being disenchanted a lot. But the other 2 is really where things get a little bit harder. So let's first talk about the offhand. The offhander, which is Eskander's left claw, this has the exact same physical model view as the right-handed claw, so they both look the same. However, this is the offhand, and it has a different chance on hit. So while the first one had a chance on hit to increase your attack power or your attack speed, this one actually slows your enemy's movement by 60%, and it causes them to bleed for 150 damage over 30 seconds. So again, this is a good weapon for PvP. However, like I said, there are better options out there. And then obviously, if you are a warrior, this wouldn't be the best choice for PvP, as you probably should be running an arm spec with Mortal Strike for that healing reduction. But, you know, that is something else to talk about. Let's move into, or actually before we move into the last piece, this piece drops off of a Zergos, and it's a 20% drop rate. So again, a low drop rate for this item. And now let's talk about Eskander's pelt, which is the cloak. So again, this cloak is by itself is not an amazing piece. It has 20 stamina, so a good amount of stamina, and it has a chance for a 1% increased chance for critical hit, I should say. Again, these items your guild will probably roll for PvP roll, as there are definitely better options for PvE and raw DPS. However, this is a really nice piece to increase your health points, and then also that crit is nice for PvP as well. So this one drops off Lord Kazakh, and it is the lowest drop rate of all of the items at around 15%. So what makes these items so special? Well, first off, as I've explained, the items themselves aren't that unique, and they aren't really that impactful in a PvE environment. So most of the time the guild will kind of give them out to people that haven't seen loot in a while. You know, most people won't really care about receiving these items, and so someone specifically trying to build up all 4 is definitely a rare sight. So if you are able to get all 4 of these pieces, what does that really mean? Well, it means that you'll have the 4-piece set, which is a 1% chance on a melee critical hit to call forth the spirit of Eskander to protect you in battle for 2 minutes. Now, this proc is very, very hard to generate and to see. It's a 1% chance on a melee crit, so you need to crit, and then on those crits, you'll have a 1% chance of calling Eskander forth. So as you see in all this background footage of this warrior here, I'm constantly attacking mobs and getting lots of crits, and we haven't seen it pop one single time. A caveat is that this footage is from an emulation server, so it's basically no one's on the server. It's strictly for testing purposes, for me being able to generate some footage of this actual proc rate. So I will say that it could be slightly lower chance on this server than actual on live. And then the other thing I will say is when Eskander actually does come forth, in the footage that I have, he comes forth as like a generic frost saber. But what actually will happen is he's like a kind of a ghostly, dead looking cat. So same model, but he has like the ghost features on him. So that is cool. But let's kind of get back to these 4 pieces. So these 4 pieces, again, are very hard for one person to see. And if you are able to get all of these 4 pieces, the proc alone is very difficult to see. So this is one of those items and one of those proc chances that if you actually get the chance to see this in World of Warcraft, it is very, very rare. I personally have never seen this in game, and I always wondered, like, oh, what these random Eskander pieces that you get from all these different bosses in classic WoW, what does Eskander actually look like? So that's probably one thing that a lot of people actually haven't seen themselves. So these pieces, as we've said, are kind of lackluster. They're not the best, but they're not horrible either, and they definitely have their place in PvP. So then, if these pieces are just average, then how does the proc stand up when you actually are able to call forth Eskander? Well, he does roughly 50 to 100 damage per hit. As I was able to find that looking at some old threads on discussing these items. I will say that on the emulation server, it does seem that the proc or his damage overall is a little bit worse. With this damage, though, he also has a chance to put a debuff on his target, which reduces the armor of that target by 1,200, which is very, very good. That's like 3 sunders on a target just instantly. So very nice armor debuff. Of course, you'd hope that Eskander does something special after, the fact that his chance to summon Eskander is so small. Now, these items are awesome, just alone for the rarity of them. But I do wish that this proc rate was a little bit stronger overall. And I will say that if Blizzard ever does any Classic Plus content, I would love to see more items like this in the game. I think these are very unique. I love unique procs on items. We have things like Hand of Edward the Odd. We have the more unique weapons that can silence a target or put up like a fairy fire on the target. All those kind of weapons are very unique, and I love unique procs like that. So I would love to see more of those kind of things in the game. But overall, guys, that is the end of this video. Hopefully this shed a little light on what the Eskander set is like, what the proc actually does. And if you are able to put all these pieces together, just know that you are one of very few players that actually have the 4-piece of Eskander. So yeah, guys, hopefully this video was entertaining and informative, and I will catch you in the next one.